What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Beyond the Kicks. This is my series where I get in-depth, one-on-one conversations with people that are really good at what they do. Everything about their history, what they're currently up to, and then our mutual interests. Of course, diving into sneakers. And for today's guest, I'm super excited to sit down and talk one-on-one with one of my good friends, somebody that I've known for quite some time because of a mutual friend that we have. Without further ado, let's dive into it. So, like I said, today's guest is former NFL wide receiver and return specialist Keenan Howry, a standout at the University of Oregon, one of the most decorated Ducks in program's history, former Minnesota Viking, Seattle Seahawk, and now he is the co-founder of Multipotentiality, a movement helping kids embrace multiple passions. He's also a big-time hip-hop and sneaker guy. What's up, Keenan? Thanks for hopping on, man.
Hey man, thanks for having me on, man. Really love being on here.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, so Keenan and I know each other through a good mutual friend named Burleson. You guys were on the Vikings and the Seahawks, if I'm not mistaken, together in the mid 2000s, right?
Yeah, so funny thing about me and Nate is that we actually played on the Shrine All-Star game in college.
Oh,
So after
that makes sense. Yeah.
so after our senior seasons ended, we both played on the Shrine team for the West, and met each other then, and then we just kept bumping into each other, bump each other at the combine, and then draft day, he gets drafted in the third round, I get drafted in the seventh round, and from that point on, we were just kind of inseparable, right? We just meetings were always together just because we're both rookies. We sat on a plane together, and then for those 3 years in Minnesota, I mean, that was kind of our deal. Like we were just we hung out, we chilled, we kicked it, and then after my last year in Minnesota, and I signed a free agent deal with Seattle, and then literally maybe like a month later, he does this where there's that whole thing with his contract from going from Minnesota to Seattle, and so he ended up in Seattle, and we ended up being there for a year, and then from that point on, man, it just kind of blossomed into a even better relationship, hanging out with his family more. And that's where you come into play, man, because I would go up there for some 4th of Julys, and you would be there, and we'd run into each other and have these great awesome talks about hip hop, and so it was good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Going all the way back to when you guys were in Minnesota, you obviously played with the legendary Randy Moss. 2 questions. Do you think he is the greatest receiver in NFL history? And then what were those wide receiver meeting rooms like back then?
Yeah, so I don't have him 1, but I mean, he is 2, behind Jerry Rice. Being a kid from California, growing up in the 80s, man, there was nobody better than Rice at the time, and I think that his numbers speak alone, and it's a pretty big gap between him and Moss, just because of just longevity, numbers, his accomplishments, Super Bowl wins. He has it all. But Moss's talent alone puts him at 2, and then on top of that, all the things that he did on the field were just remarkable. And then for me being there for 2 years playing with him, being able to see it up close and personal, man, it was amazing to watch, man. And like you kind of alluded to about the receiver meetings, and that's the one thing I don't think a lot of people understand about Randy, is about how smart he is. Like we're coming in as rookies and just trying to understand just what the hell we're doing on specific plays, and he's sitting in the meeting rooms talking about like, oh well, the O line has this protection, they're gonna block this guy, so I'm gonna run this route. And he knew everybody's position. He knew the O line, the protection. He was an incredibly smart receiver. Some of the things he did in practice, bigger than anything he did in the games. And some of those things, it was amazing to watch. So yeah, it was a fun and awesome 2 years, and I learned a lot from Randy. And I think Nate would kind of tell you the same. He was an awesome person to be around, and it really helped us for those 2 years.
Going back to the college days, anyone that follows my channel, you guys know I'm a very proud Washington Husky. Of course, Keenan, very proud Oregon Duck. But you, honest to God, bro, like you put together one of the most accomplished careers in Oregon football history. So what was your whole experience like being a part of the resurgence, honestly, of that program?
Yeah, I mean, you compare the 2 time points, right? You look at right now, they're a perennial team for the playoff. They're going to be perennial, contenders to win the Big Ten every single year. Back then we were in the Pac-10, right? So you can see how much things have changed in just 20 short years. But when I chose to go to Oregon, they were definitely middle of the road, Pac-10 team. the powerhouses at the time were, the Huskies, UW, UCLA, USC, and then Arizona would sneak in, Arizona State would get in there. And I think that's where Oregon fit. It was in the middle of the road. Every year, they could pop up and be two, or they could, win the Pac-10 like they did in '94, but there was never any sustaining power. It was no consistent, like, oh, they're one, they're two. Here's a couple years in a row where they win a championship, but then they're two. So, going to Oregon at that time, it was a middle of the road team. Like, there were some good years and there were some, average years. So get in there, and you say the resurgence. I kind of think it was a small step towards where they are now, right? I think the '94 team, the one that went to the Rose Bowl, was kind of the start. They kind of made the community and the program itself know that they can, get to those type of heights. And then in me and getting there in '99, there was still some hesitancy about just, how good Oregon could be, where their place was in the Pac-10. I mean, we weren't short of confidence, but as a program, we just didn't have, like I said, the staying power. And then,
Right.
By the time we get to 2000, my second year, hey, we're competing for a Pac-10 championship. If we don't lose to Oregon State, I mean, we go 8-0 in conference. We win the Pac. We play Purdue, led by Drew Brees in the Rose Bowl, but we slipped up and we didn't. So next year, in 2001, we had a really great year. We were 10-1 in the season. Got left out of the BCS championship game, for Nebraska. But we went out and played a great bowl game, and I think that's where it started to put us on the map.
As a obviously proud Husky, I remember that you telling me years ago that Chris Petersen was going to restore Washington football because he was your receiver coach at Oregon. So what was it about Coach Pete that made you so confident that he's going to make a big impact, which he absolutely did at UW?
Yeah, man, I love Pete. And Coach Pete was, my receiver coach from 1999 to 2000, and he was such a stickler for detail, and just everything being the correct way and doing things the right way. And one of the big things that kind of showed me in the beginning is that he had an eye for who can do what, right? So in 99, 2000, like coming in as a freshman, I'd come off of high school where it was like, I didn't come off the field. I played every snap at receiver, win, lose, or draw, rain, sleet, snow, shine, whatever, I was out there. And then coming into 99, and you kind of look at how he orchestrate things. He would have a receiver in for this play, for these plays, this packages. And he was a master at like just substitution patterns and getting guys in. But it's more about putting guys in the best position for themselves and for the team. So, after 2000, he goes on and he takes the coordinator job at Boise, and you just see immediately their offense just explodes. Yeah. Number one offense in the nation for those how many years he was there. And then he, when what's his name leaves and goes to Colorado, he steps in, takes the head job, and then they don't miss a beat offensively, defensively, and they're doing more with less because they're not recruiting guys that teams in the Pac-10 are recruiting. They're recruiting the guys below them. Right. They're the some 3 stars, but most of the guys are going to be right around the 2-3 star range, and they're not highly recruited. Most of these guys aren't looked at for Pac-10 schools, and he's going out there and they're competing. I don't know how many undefeated seasons they had. They play in one of the greatest, bowl games ever when they beat Oklahoma on the hook and ladder, and then the Statue of Liberty for the go-ahead touchdown. So when I had always felt like Pete would have been an awesome head coach at Oregon. So then get into UW, and this is the reason why I told you, is that he's going to get the best out of all, 100 guys on that team from top to bottom, because that's what he's done. And I think with a lot of coaches, especially a lot of coaches in football who go from, the mid-major program to a Power 4, Power 5 program, I think they changed their philosophy, they changed their personality to try to be like, oh, well, this is how it has to be because I'm at a bigger school. I have to act like I'm a Power 5 coach. I can't do the things I was doing at Tulsa or at Eastern Michigan like I'm doing now at Michigan or Oklahoma or Texas. I have to, have to do things different. And I think with Pete, like, that's never been his MO. He's going to do things the way he does them, and whether they fit or not, he's going to continue to do it. And, he got there, and, that's what happened, man. He immediate success, Pac-10, Pac-12 championships. They play for a national championship. He does an awesome job. It was sad to see, he retired so soon, but I talked to him and I got it. I understood that it became a daunting task to just 24/7 coach and recruit, and that's not what he wants to do. He loves recruiting, he does it, he's awesome at it. He's more about the developing and the day-to-day grind of what is football, and not all the other stuff. So yeah, it was awesome. I was glad to see the success up there, even if it was with UW.
I was very glad to see the success up here. The Huskies needed it at that time, and it definitely helped change the program. Sticking with football, because this is just something that I think that a lot of people are probably really interested in. So obviously, like we said, you played with the Vikings, Seahawks, and I think fans underestimate how hard it is to stay in the league. I think a lot of people, when they think about, like, again, we'll talk about Nate here. Nate played 11 years in the league, and I don't necessarily know if like the expectation was, oh yeah, Nate's going to play 11 years in the league, because unless you're like a Randy Moss, a Calvin Johnson, a big name, it's tough, man, because you always got the young guys coming in that are always trying to take your job. What was the biggest lesson that you learned about the business side of football?
Yeah, man, the biggest lesson I probably learned in getting to the NFL was just how much of a business it is, right? And I think that's the one thing I think moving forward is I think more that this younger generation has a better grasp of it than we did in our day, was just how much of a business you had to be. Right, you had to be the business of your own business of yourself as an athlete and as a football player, to where it was like, I don't think a lot of guys at that time, that's what they looked into it as, right? They woke up and they go work out, and then they go to practice or whatever. It wasn't a business. You think about most businesses, both business owners, successful business owners, CEOs, like they're 100% all in. They wake up in the morning and they're in that's all they do, right? And I think as generations got on, and as the days went, the years went on, I think more and more of the young kids were starting to kind of look at it that way, to where they're up 6, 7 in the morning, and they're right to it, grinding, right, working out, getting extra reps in, doing the extra things. And it was happening in our day, but not on this wide a scale, right? And the business, I mean, like what you were talking about earlier about how Nate played 11 years, I played 4. Like was that always the thought that you'd play? I mean, I think for most guys in NFL, I think the confidence is always there that you're going to play forever, right? Everybody has that, or they wouldn't be successful. But it is a psychological battle every single year you go. If you're, like you said, if you're not a generational talent, or if you're just not a first round pick, like back then the money was so hot, so big for these first round picks, that I don't think a lot of people understand now. Like, they made it hard for you not to be on the field as a first round pick. It's really a high pick, right? So if you weren't a first round pick at those times, you were literally playing for your job every single year. Like, you had to go out there and you were wondering, like, man, am I going to make the team this year? I could be cut any moment. And that was me. Like, 7th round pick, I come in there and, I'm just trying to make the team, right? It's like I go in there my first year trying to make the team, and then from that point on, I make it. And then it's like, all right, how do I stay on the team, right? Because every day, every week, every Tuesday, they're bringing in guys off the street to come work out and try to see if they can, bring them on the team. So your job is always up in jeopardy. But as you get to the end, it's a lot like the beginning. Like you're right back to the, man, I got to do any and everything I can to stay on this team, to stay stay employed, to keep my job. And it's a grind. It's hard. And it's not for the weak. Because it's a great ride, but it's really short. It's like an amusement park ride, right? It takes off quick, you get going, you love it, and you want to keep doing it again. But the reality is that it might not last as long as you want it to.
To move on from one big business to another big business, let's talk hip hop, because you grew up in Southern California. This thing always, even though I've known this for years about you, you're one of the biggest Jay-Z East Coast hip hop guys I know. And most kids from SoCal in that era were riding with Pac, Snoop, Dre, Death Row, all that stuff. So where did that love of East Coast hip hop come for a SoCal kid?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I was still, engulfed with, West Coast music at the time. Growing up in the '80s, that's the right around, all the music is coming out, all the hip hop is starting to go off, and then 91 hits, Dre and Snoop, the big anthem. You know, they have Ain't Nothing But a G Thing. You know, they have Dre Day. You know, Snoop comes out with his album. You know, and it's, you know, bona fide. You know, great, one of the greatest albums of all time. Mm-hmm. It's a classic, and you know, yeah, I was right there, loved it. But I think the love for East Coast music kind of happened when I got to high school. You know, my best friend, he is from New York, and he moved to Cali in 93 or 94. And so I met him in 95, and he would just, you know, always, you know, playing all this music that I just really I didn't hear about. I heard about the commercial hip hop stuff and some of the East Coast stuff. So I really just started getting into it. And that's where I was just like, Biggie was already out at the time, right? Mm-hmm. He comes out in 94. So by this time it's 95. He'd already dropped Ready to Die. And I had already listened to it. I was like, oh, it's pretty cool. Yeah. But then it was like, by that time, it was like, oh man, I'm really starting to like focus on like what's being said, how it's being said, the art of hip hop, the art of lyrics, and all that stuff. And I just kind of got more engulfed in that. And it was more prevalent from East Coast rappers.
Top 5 dead or alive hip hop MCs. Now, this is your preference, so not what you think, you know, everyone should say, but your favorite top 5.
Yeah, man. Oh, man, top 5. Let's see. So, I mean, definitely Biggie is in there. I won't put it in order because it's hard once you, especially once you get past 1 and 2. In my head, it's, you know, you can make an argument for everybody, but I think 1 and 2 is definitely, 1 is big, Jay-Z is 2, and then I think 3, 4, and 5 is it's going to be you know, like I said, any way you want to mix it up. I'm going to go with, you know, Nas, Eminem definitely, and then I'm gonna go with Rakim 5. Okay. Just because I don't think we get this era of, or at least our era of hip hop without him.
So I would do Pac. Pac is always my number 1. I would have M in there. I would have Nas in there. That's 3. I would toss Method Man in there, and then my 5th, I'm gonna go Cam. I think Cameron, for me, was huge because I remember at that era I was all about, because I got so turned off from just like commercial hip hop at that time that I was listening to a lot of backpack indie hip hop, and I was like so frustrated with like commercial rap. And I remember a friend told me like, man, you got to check out this Purple Haze album that Cam just did. I'm like, nah, man, I'm not gonna listen to Cam. Like, and he's like, just trust me.
Cameron, Horse and Carriage.
Yeah, exactly. And so I listened to Purple Haze, and and that is like the defining moment for me that kind of brought me back to not being like, you know, this pretentious, I only listen to underground indie hip hop, because I just thought that album was crazy. We could talk about hip hop like a whole entire podcast about it. But I'm gonna transition into something that everyone that watches this channel watches me specifically for, and that's to be about sneakers. And I know you and I talk about sneakers often.
Oh yeah.
And I know that a lot of people are going to be watching this, especially because people that are into sneaker culture, they know all about the University of Oregon and about Nike and about PEs. And I was just curious if you could share with me and with everyone that's tuning in, what was it like back when you were there? And so like, did you get the insane amount of gear or player exclusives that these guys get now? My assumption is no, but to at least some degree, did you get some heat back then?
No. Not at all. Like there was nothing. There was no heat. There was no, like, we thought that the travel sweats were some of the nicest stuff that we'd ever got in our life, right? No, in the late 90s, even early 2000s, like there was no PEs, no player. We weren't getting, you know, player specific, you know, brands of shoes. Like Nike wasn't, you know, dropping an Air Force One just for us, or they weren't, you know, it wasn't anything like that. It was literally zero. Like we got a team issue shoe that was, you know, and I mean, even before, here's a funny thing is that before 2002, like we were just all getting the regular Nikes that, you know, normal everyday people could get.
Like the generic, yeah.
Or buy the stuff. And it was like my junior year, and I think this is what changed it. My junior year, going into the first game of the year, me and some other guys were just like, dude, we need to do something sweet. Like this is going to be a big year for us. Like we got this first game against Wisconsin. It's a big game. You know, we need to do something sweet, man. We need to, like, so we went out there, and if you look for 2001 versus Oregon versus Wisconsin, and look at some of the guys on that team, we all went out there and got the decals, our helmet decals, and we went and like put them on the back of the heel of our shoe. Like I had two on the heel of my shoe. I actually had my mom, who was up at the time visiting, going to the first game. Like, so we had these Nikes, they're all black, but they had the sides was like white. So I had her paint the white part green. Ooh. And I had all my swooshes yellow, like, because I was like, man, this is gonna be nice. So we all went out. So nobody, it was only like maybe a handful of us knew this, and at the time, nobody knew. So we go out there, first game, everybody, we all wore them, this, that, and the other, and then literally like Monday, hey, coach, this body sits up in the meeting, you cannot do this ever again.
Yeah,
I will take the shoes off of you right then and there. The only thing you can wear is team issue. Nothing can, your shoes cannot be altered. They can and that was the end of it. But then the thing is that you fast forward 2002, we got cleats with O's on it, and they were green. They had green and yellow. So it was like this big thing, and we always felt like, oh man, this is, I think we kind of started something here, and I think that was kind of the beginning. And now, you look at it, and it's like, like you said, PE Jordans and PE Air Force Ones and all these different, variations of Nikes have kind of dropped some form of PEs, and it's not just at Oregon. I mean, you look at all the other schools that are, doing stuff like that with the Jordan brand, and all the other Nike schools, they're dropping something. It's remarkable. But yeah, back then it was whatever they gave you fresh out the box. Like, here you go, wear this, or don't. We don't care.
Y'all were trendsetters, though. I like that. You guys were like the first custom sneaker guys as far as like college football goes. So then what's the coolest PE, like Oregon exclusive or just Nike item that you've ever actually owned?
I can just grab it right now. Hold on.
Yes, let's go.
A few moments later.
I don't have a nice, cool shoe setup like you do, but I mean, one of the first ones I got were these cements. Got the O's on them. Got the duck feet on the back. So yeah, my guy at Oregon, man, Kenny Farr, he's at the time, like up until recently, he was just working in the equipment room. He was a guy, and then when Chip took over, he kind of got promoted to be the main equipment man at Oregon. So I think all the ex-players at Oregon always, just talk about Kenny, how good of a job he does, and how awesome he is. And he's always hooked us up. He always does that. Got those and got these.
Dang.
Ooh,
was that the metallic green on the back too?
Yep.
Dang.
Now these see, I actually wear my shoes, so these are kind of a little worn. So both pairs are a little warm, and I've got some other ones, but those are like the first two I got, and I was just like, man, I just really cherish those.
Okay, so favorite 3 sneakers of all time?
Man, of all time, I'd go, I'd probably go the ones, just because they're so iconic. Just what they look like, and I think all versions look good.
I was just gonna ask you, like highs, lows, mids, even.
It doesn't matter. I think they all look go same with the Concords. Those. I mean, those were so fire when they came out. Third, I would just just because he was probably one of my favorite players of all time. I go with the pennies, man. The first ones, those were my favorites.
Are there any pairs that you actually don't like or that you think are overrated?
Yeah, some of the Jordans I'm not a really big fan of, just because, just like I said, I'm more of a visual guy, and I'm just like, I don't really like the way they look. So I'm always gonna it's always gonna be kind of hit or miss in terms of what other people like and what I do. But trying to think, has there been one shoe that everybody's been like, oh, I mean, I guess everybody kind of got down on the Pandas, and I was like, oh man, I kind of like the Pandas. They're kind of cool. I mean, it's kind of, go with anything. It's a cool shoe. Why not? Yeah. I wish they had these options when I was playing. Like, because, kind of like what I said about our shoes at Oregon, how it was just like, hey, these are team issues. This is what you wear. This is the only option you get. Shoes back then were just, that's just what they were. There was no variety. They came in, I mean, up until maybe like the mid 90s, they would come in 2 colors. They were either black or they were white, or they were black and white, or white and black. That was kind of it. And then, mid 90s, and then all of a sudden they started showing some different variations. Like, oh, here's, the Speed TDs. Oh, look at all the colorways of the Speed TDs. And it was like, oh, it was kind of cool. And it was like, but now, man, it was like, but that was what everybody played with. If you were skill, you wore Speeds. If you were a big dude, you wore Sharks. That's just
Yep,
what it
man, that's
was.
crazy. That's exactly what I
Now
mean.
it's
I
just
remember
like,
even customizing cleats in the early football games. That was pretty much the only options that you could use.
or you spat them up.
Yeah, exactly. All right, man. So, lastly, I want to dive into what you're currently doing career wise. So, my wife has worked in the Montessori education her entire career, and one of the core ideas there with Montessori is allowing kids to explore their interests, develop the whole people rather than forcing them into a box. So, when I read about what you're building, there definitely seemed to be a lot of overlap with that method. And I was just curious, was that philosophy something that developed naturally with you as a parent? Or was there a specific moment where it just kind of clicked for you?
It was a combination, man. It was that, and then also just the way I grew up. Like I grew up with, two parents who worked, and so I spent a lot of time outside, and my mom worked at a recreational center in Watts and Jordan Downs. So 80% of my childhood was spent there. I'd go to school, get
Mhm.
picked up, go there, and and when we were there, it was like that's what you did, man. It was football season, you did football. Then next football season was over, we played basketball. Basketball season was over, we played baseball. Summer, we took a break. We didn't do anything. And that was kind of me growing up. And you get to high school, and it becomes very, very difficult to continue to do that. Even though I was able to do it and do it pretty fairly well, it was still a grind. It still takes a toll on you, mentally and physically, to be able to do that. And then you fast forward to now as a parent, and I think we all as parents are going to sit out there and go, hey, I want to give my child every opportunity to do these things and do that, do this, that, and the other. But at some point in time, like, you kind of have to make a decision, like, oh, we can't do one more thing, or we have to narrow it down to one, or we have to only focus on this. And I think with my kids now, especially them being active and doing all kinds of things, especially my son, we run in these circles with parents, and they're even at a young age. I'm talking about, I think my son was second grade or third grade, and parents are already coming up to us, like, oh, have you are you just gonna just have Keenan focus on soccer, or is he gonna go on? And I'm just like, dude, he's 7, he's 8, like he doesn't know what he wants to eat for breakfast tomorrow. I mean, how am I gonna sit here and have him make a decision? Like, what, he's just gonna focus on soccer for the rest of his life, right? And it's disheartening, because I think because of that, we pretty much had to cut soccer out of his sporting, because some of these other kids were only doing soccer, and he felt like he was getting left behind, and he kind of
Right.
lost interest in it and put it in other things. But I think that's one of the things with doing what we're doing is trying to encourage kids, but at the same time it's more about encouraging and educating the parents. Just
Yeah.
about, like, you don't have to have your kid just do one thing, right? And that was kind of me and my wife's philosophy, was whatever our kid wants to do, as long as they're going to do it, we're going to allow them to keep doing it. So if my son wants to, it was one of these things where we even said it was like, he thought we had 2 left feet, he didn't have the best rhythm ever, so we're like, oh, let's put him in a hip-hop dance class. We can't be taking him to family functions and he can't dance or whatever. But it was selfishly like a parent decision to put him into that. But he got into it, he liked it, and he hasn't wanted to stop. Same thing with with baseball. Now, he's done baseball, and even though all these other kids were doing travel ball, like at not 8, 9 years old, like, we were like, we can't do that yet. We can't go all in. So we continue to just do baseball, and he does football, and my son, my daughter does dance and gymnastics, and all these other different art things. And I think that's the big thing, is like, we want to be able to let kids do what they want to do. But I think the majority of kids have no idea. They're trying to find their way through life. They're finding their way through life and school, and we're trying to have them make grown-up decisions at 10 years old. And that was the whole point of starting it was partly because of my son and how his athletic and activity journey has been. And it's more dealing with the parents, and while they just like, oh, you guys are doing too much, Keenan's doing too many activities. He needs a break. You guys just need to focus on, just have him focus on football. Just have him focus on baseball. Hey, he doesn't, and it was a lot of years of dealing with that with parents. And, we just got to a point where we're just like, there has to be something for parents to kind of help them, and that's the journey we're on. It's it's in its infant stages. We just kind of started growing it, and we're trying to get the information, getting more and more information, and make it to where it's going to be somewhere where parents can come and get education, get some information. It's a community, so they can get help or talk to somebody who's like, hey, this is, and just have that feeling of like, hey, yeah, I went through this with my kid. You don't have to choose. Like, let your kid figure it out by himself. Let them experience everything. And I think the more and more that you come into this, you hear stories about who, get back to our one of our first, talks was about Randy Moss. Dude was a All-American basketball hooper in West Virginia.
Was nice.
Nice. He did that, and it's like all these guys have these experiences that you come across with where it's like, oh yeah, I played baseball up until, you look at Tom Brady, greatest quarterback ever. He was drafted, I think, by the Expos out of high school, right? He played baseball. John Elway played baseball, There's so many of these guys who did multiple things, and it's never been an issue up until, the last probably 15, 20 years, where I just think that the big business of kids sports has kind of tried to grab as much real estate as they can. So they want kids to only do one thing. And, we're trying to go out there and just put the information out and get as many people, like I said, educated and informed about just, and also there's a lot of, ideas and documents and, documentation from doctors that say that, specializing is hard on the body. It's hard on kids. So yeah, we're just trying to get the information out there as, that's just something I did. Like I played multiple sports all the way through high school, and I had a great time. It didn't hinder me at all. And, we're trying to, have people have the same experience. And I think a lot of the parents have a delusion in their head that, and I get it. Hey, school is expensive, right? School is expensive. College is expensive. And you want your kid to get a free education or go on and play professionally or whatnot. But at the end of the day, like, dude, I was just talking to my dad about this. I'm like, the chances of your kid actually going pro are so slim, so small. It's like this is not me coming from a place where I did it, but you can't. It's not even that. It's just like it's hard. It's a small, like even the chance of getting a college scholarship in something is small. I think more grown-ups just need to like be grown-ups and kind of take a step back and realize that, hey, what you're doing isn't helping your kid. Like, just let your kid be a kid. Let them tell you they want to do 20 different things. And eventually, you know what? Things are going to start falling off. They're going to stop liking some. There's a story where, one of my wife's best friends, like, he was a hooper growing up, played basketball his whole life, basketball up until he got to, I want to say 7th grade. And then just said, I don't want to play basketball anymore. Just got burnt out.
Yeah.
Didn't play basketball anymore. Burnt out, didn't play it, played lacrosse for a year, and then started playing football like in 8th grade, 9th grade, and ended up getting a scholarship to go to Princeton, right? And it's just, there's tons, like, it doesn't have to be just one, you're going to put all your eggs in that basket, and you're going to realize at the end of the day, you turn around and, damn, my basket's empty. Where'd my egg go? And it's like, it sucks. And my thing is, I feel bad for the kid. Because there's tons of stories where like, oh, yeah, I wanted to play baseball, but my mom wouldn't let me. Oh, I wanted to play football, but my parents said I had to pick one, so I chose football, or I chose baseball. And so it's kind of a sad thing of having to hear kids, at the age of like 12, 11, where it's like making these big decisions that they have no idea and have no reason to make. So
I think it's really cool that you guys are doing something like this, because I do think that educating the parents is probably more important really than talking to the kids about it. What's the goal that you have moving forward with this?
Moving forward is to do just that, right? Educate as many parents as possible, educate as many kids as possible about the benefits of doing multiple things, right? But then at the end of the day, we want to also get to a point where we're not just giving them information, we're not just giving them education, we want to be there for support. So we want to counsel, to have a mentorship program where there's current, collegiate high school athletes who can mentor and help younger athletes, or not even athletes, just like people who are doing, young gymnasts, young, pianist, or they're playing an instrument, martial artists, whatever it is, that you have somebody that you can connect with and build a relationship with to help you along your journey, no matter what it is. And then building to a point where, like I said, same thing, community for parents that they can come get information. And then at the same thing, we're working toward building, infrastructure towards like facilities that are multi-use facilities, where it's like, you can do your sports and all your stuff on the ground level, but then up top we're going to try to do it towards like, now there's a music studio, there's there's piano lessons, you can take lessons here, there's a gymnastics things. So just trying to build everything around the brand of being multi, and just doing, and that's our tagline, right? Be all of it. And it's just trying to get kids to do all the things that they want to do.
I love it, man. Well, I appreciate you hopping on this, bro. We talked football, we talked hip hop, we talked sneakers, we talked what you guys are currently doing. If you guys viewing this video want more information, where can they get info on what you're doing?
Yeah, the website is beallofit.com, right? So BEALLOFIT, beallofit.com. It's multipotentiality. We thought that'd be a little too wordy for the website, so we went with our tagline of Be All of It for the website. And like I said, we're in the infancy stage, so we're just growing, getting some good information out there for people. And right now the website is like geared around just our kids, right? Just telling them, going through their journey, what they've been going through. But yeah, definitely check out the website. Give it a look. There's also some pretty cool merch that we got on there. If you want to pick some of it up, definitely do so.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you again hopping on, bro.
Yeah, man. My pleasure. Anytime.